Okay, we are live. Hi, this is William Ramsey. Welcome to William Ramsey Investigates. On today's show, I have two very special guests that come to us from Germany. One is a returning guest. If you've listened to my show in the past, you'll see his name. It is Dr.Marcel Polte. Last name is spelled Polte. And he also is joined by somebody who he wrote the foreword to her book. Her name is Rike Schwan. And if you're watching this on X, Rumble, or Rockfin, you will see the full title of the book, which is Illuminati in Germany, the Descendant of an SS Leader Spills the Beans. And I've read the whole book, and it's very interesting. And there's also the foreword, like I said, was drafted by Dr. Marcel Polte. And we talked a couple years ago about his excellent book, Dark New World Order. We did two parts. Part one was in 2022. 2023 was Dark New World Order, the puppet masters and their motives. So it kind of ties in with the themes in this book. But he also has a foreword by Chantal Fry, who is somebody very similar to our guest, Rike. And we were talking in the pre-show of somebody else's book who I just read, which kind of overlaps with this. Her name is Annika Lucas, and she's been on a number of shows. One recently, which had like 2 million views, like huge amount of views, but telling her story of very severe abuse at the hands of elites. And she actually said in one of her interviews, she thought she was going to be a human sacrifice at the Bilderberger meeting in 1972. And she had a very harrowing tale. And this is also a harrowing tale. So I would say one of the ways we say in the States now is trigger warning, or also just kind of, this is a very intense subject matter. And it overlaps with a lot of kind of the parapolitical occult research that I've done and other people have done here in the States. So I'm delighted to have them both on the show. So Marcel and Rike, welcome to William Ramsey Investigates.
Thank you very much, William, for inviting us.
Excellent. So for people who may not have heard our older show, Marcel, maybe you can do an introduction, talk about your background, your other books, and then what led up to the publication of this book, which was published in November 2024.
Yeah, sure. My background is that of a lawyer working or having worked for 15 years in international law firm, in particular in stock corporation law. But besides this, I was always very interested in other topics like the so-called UAP phenomenon, but also became aware of the topic of mind control, and started researching it and found out that there's a huge amount of data regarding mind control and so-called cult activities, and both topics are connected. And this brought me to write a book about this because for myself, it became necessary to structure all the data I learned over the years, and to give the public an overview on the topic: what is mind control, how it is connected to, at one hand, certain agencies like the CIA, the military, and so on, and on the other hand, cult families spread all over the world, and that has practiced this so-called mind control techniques, which is splitting of the consciousness in order to produce certain so-called consciousness parts that can be trained, that can be conditioned for certain purposes. And later on in the 1950s, the CIA also started a program to research these methods and to bring this message forward with new techniques, the so-called MK Ultra program. And by doing this research, I got into contact with certain survivors from cult families, also from the MK Ultra program. And one of these was Chantal Fry, a Swiss survivor who had been born into the Illuminati family, and who has been subjected to severe mind control methods, but also a lot of Satanism. She had to participate in rituals, had to train children by herself, had to participate in cannibalism, and so on. And like this, I learned a lot of survivors over the years, and also participated or supported a project called 50 Voices of Ritual Abuse, where for the first time 50 survivors of cult abuse shared their testimonies. And I also came into contact with Rike Schwan, and her story was very interesting for me because in the second part of my book, Dark New World Order, I wrote about a very specific subject, the so-called reptilian entities, which are connected to all of this. And for me, it was quite clear, if I, as a lawyer, start writing about reptilians, there has to be a huge amount of data proving all of this and corroborating my story. And I found this. There is a huge amount of testimonies from different time frames describing these entities, but also you find these in many different cultures. We can detail this later on. So at the end, I had so much corroborating evidence that I found sure enough and confident enough to write about this very specific topic. And what was interesting for me that Rike Schwan is, from what I know, the first survivor who can describe her experiences coming not only out of a satanic family and having endured mind control, but having certain members in her family that belong to this probably interdimensional reptilian race. And she can talk more about this.
Yeah, Ricky, welcome. And maybe you can tell your background too, what kind of led, I mean, you had a pretty abusive, I would say very abusive background. Maybe you can talk about a little bit
Right.
of that leading up to the publication of this book.
Yes. Yeah, it was kind of. It took a few years for me to escape the family. I had tried to flee since I was a teen, and well, then it took I don't know. I mean, up to 10 years, I think, until I could leave the city. That was important for me to find a new home where I didn't get reminded of everything from the past, and also that I was afraid to in the city, when I went to the city, that I would see someone that I knew from my family, or not from my family, but some perpetrator that was I didn't feel safe there, so I left. Then I could leave the city, and in my new home I could build some safety and get some therapy done. And then I started to remember this stuff, which of course I first thought, like, what? I just remembered the normal abuse before this, and then I was like, what? This is so weird. I first didn't believe it, but then I read books like from Marcel. I read it, and I was like, others have the same memories and they experience the same, but also that people who didn't know this from experience believed those testimonies. It was very encouraging for me. So and all this time, when I remembered something, I wrote it down in a diary. And after a while, I thought, I want to publish this. I want to put it in the right order, chronologically. And yeah, I was just like, tell everyone what happened. And then I thought, like, I'm not sure if anyone would be interested, and maybe I could write ask someone if they write a foreword for me. And I think I wrote Chantal first, but then also Marcel, and they both agreed to write a foreword. And yeah, I was very happy with that. And then I even got the courage to write about the lizard occurrences, which it was another level of not believing this stuff, because I have heard of it before, but I always thought like that this can't be true. I was a non-believer in this regards. But then I changed my mind after some memories that I think are true. But I'm very sure about this because I put it in my book.
And I have to add, I not only just wrote the foreword, but over a period of some months, we discussed every detail of her book. So it was a very intense cooperation that also helped me to believe in her story. And there were many details that she could corroborate by further documentation, or that I heard similar accounts from other survivors. So it was very soon very clear for me that this is a legitimate story and a bombshell, because, as I mentioned, for the first time, someone could report out of her own family that these lizard people indeed exist and what she has experienced with them.
Right. I mean, this is kind of like rumored about that these things happen, but I actually did a show here. I don't know if you've heard of the Hosanna Church scandal that happened in Louisiana, and they were involved in very dark practices involving Satanism, infants, and things like that. And there was testimony by this guy LaMonica that there was shape shifting taking place. These people's faces would shape shift. And so it's not uncommon. It's actually more and more of these. There's other people with stories like Rike's and Chantal's that are coming out here in the States, and they corroborate each other. So a lot of this stuff isn't believable because people aren't in this, but this corroboration, like you said, Marcel, is happening. It's happening faster.
Yes.
And, yeah. So maybe if you'd like to talk about kind of you believe that you went under mind control, that you were created as multiple alters, and that prevented you from understanding and comprehending the abuse you went through, right? Rike, can you talk about that?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's a common practice in my family, and I think in all cult families they know that torture splits the mind, and well they start with it right away when they have the children, when the baby is born, and well most often also already in the womb. But I don't know how, if this is also splitting the mind or just torture. I'm not really totally clear about that, but I know that the first altars were split off after my birth. That was a few days where they put me in torture situations where I thought I would die, and then they also started to call in demons right away. And yeah, and then they continued doing the altars. I don't know the exact number that were there, but it was a lot. So, and they could call them out in the body, and well, it's easy to manipulate someone like the altar than someone who only knows them and nothing else. And so they conditioned them the altars for different tasks. Like sex work is the most common, I guess. Also, as I got older, also to train others or to do rituals and stuff like that. And because it were altars, there was amnesia between my everyday consciousness and what happened in the cult setting. So it didn't know about it until the first memories.
Right, and they could like induce this state through conditioning, hypnosis. So like you said, hypnosis is involved in almost all the cult things
Yeah,
too, right? Can you talk about that?
that's how
Yeah.
they create the inner world, and they want to make it look like they plan it. For that, they have to hypnose the child to tell it what to see, what to feel in special areas. There is a happy world, a Candyland and stuff. And in the other world, there's just everything's red. It's all blood. And you are tortured. You have to be ready to die and be sacrificed for the family and all the gods and demons.
Right. So
And
you're being conditioned and hypnotized. I guess the English word is hypnotized. So you're put in a hypnotic
hypnotized.
state, but also being things. People are wearing masks, and you're being drugged. Like it's very intense kind of procedure,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Yeah. So the drugs, for example, they make they make sometimes happy, so that the child doesn't have a free will. I mean, they can give you a drug and then say do something that's bad that you don't want, but you don't feel that anymore because you're high. And that's also to a certain degree, they can also do this without drugs and just hypnosis because they manipulate your feelings with this.
Yeah, what I didn't mention, while I was reaching for my first book on this topic, Dark New World Order, I was studying a lot of literature by trauma therapists from different countries, from many German therapists, but also from US American therapists. And it was quite clear that they were all describing the same. And I was very impressed by their descriptions of these highly sophisticated mind control techniques, how the perpetrators were able to split the minds of their clients by trauma and abuse, and how, as Rike explained, they not only produced these altars in a huge number, so some survivors have maybe 100, 200 or more altars, but also created whole inner worlds in the psyche of the victim, where they placed these altars and could call them out for certain tasks, as Rick has described. So everything I read from her in the manuscript was matching what I had read before in the literature by therapists. And so this was another cooperation for me that she indeed experienced what she was writing about. You're muted.
Sorry. I don't know if either of you have seen this podcast here in the States. It's called The Imagination, but it
Yes.
has stories. Okay. It has
Yeah,
stories like
I
hers.
also had an interview with her. Is an excellent host, Emma, and she's incredibly active in interviewing survivors of ritual abuse and mind control. And yeah, you find a lot of information.
So you've already been on this show, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that. Yeah, so this is another for maybe the listeners. This is another one. I've had a friend of mine, Sean McCann of Wake the Dead, has interviewed Carrie Olahe. Very similar stories. Like I can't say that I've gone great depth of this, but it's just another element of corroboration of these stories and this kind of activity that you're part of it. And when you were growing up, it's happening at a global scale. Like it's almost a capital C cult. So your family's involved, but you traveled to England, Scandinavia or Sweden somewhere, helicopters, like really intense like stuff with elite people. They even trained you to think that you were kind of a member of an elite kind of group, right?
Yeah, that's how they viewed it themselves. They thought very much of themselves, which I don't know the handler I had. Well, he had all the contacts to the royal families and also American military and stuff. And I think he knew that the network is global and powerful. And that's made some of them very sure of themselves. And yeah, they called it elite. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you even brought up the Queen of Sweden. Like, this is really incredible. So this knowledge of mind control, even through MK Ultra or whatever, and through the American military, just really went global. But it may have even gone farther back. Like, one of the interesting things I wasn't aware about, but was in your book, is a reference to Mengele, who they call the Angel of Death, and some kind of Mengele, like he improved and refined everything. Can you expand on that? I just am not familiar with his connection to this kind of mind control stuff.
Yeah. Well, my great grandmother was born in 1913. So I know that everything already happened there. And she had the Nazi contacts, like I don't know if it was a cousin of hers, my Nazi great uncle, Werner Best. He was the leader of the SS, Obergruppenführer. And well, they told me that Mengele had experimented in mind control. He looked at how I don't know how many the details of what he looked at, but they said he improved in their opinion. And I also have heard it from others that he invented specific mind control, like he introduced the color system, where they put certain colors with certain topics, like the red for blood and stuff, and I don't know. Blue is often the prostitution. That it varies a little bit from group to group, but apparently that was his invention.
Yes, this color code is also well known inside the therapist community. Many of the therapists found these color codes in their clients with multiple personalities. And I think it's at least 24 of survivors who had experiences with Mengele and talked about it. For example, Katie Groves, who had a YouTube channel, explains how her father was trained by Mengele himself and was very proud to be a so-called Mengele kid. And many others also could remember to have come into contact with Mengele and described how they had been tortured and mind-controlled by him.
These stories were post-war, so Mengele got out and made it to South America, and there were stories of him being in the United States under a pseudonym. They called him Mr. Green or Mr. Greenhouse. I don't know if you're aware of those stories. Okay.
Yeah.
And they found like he lived into the 70s. Like, it's a very strange story. It's something I need to look into greater detail. But there was another German scientist. His name was von Koss, Koss, who was a hypnotist who was involved with James Earl Ray, who was the supposed assassin of MLK. So there's this direct tie out of Germany of the the mind control doctors, hypnotism, and American assassinations of all things. Like, this is all provable. It's really unbelievable. Yeah. And there's been we call it paperclip here. There's been other people who are scientists at it. I mean, obviously Werner von
Braun, and that's even officially.
A lot of them came over and worked in
Yeah, it's
biological
officially,
warfare and hypnotism or something. So this knowledge went out, and you believe also, Rike, that this gentleman, well, maybe not a gentleman, Werner Best, also knew some of these mind control techniques. Is that right?
Well, I know that he participated in the
I'm
cult.
sorry, I just lost your audio.
Oh, sorry.
Is it me? Let me see.
I think my connection now.
I hear you, Rike.
Okay. Wait, no,
I don't know what.
Can you hear me? Can you hear
still
me now?
can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you can continue.
Okay.
William.
I don't think you're muted. Can you guys hear me? Can you give
Yes.
me a thumbs up if you hear? So you hear me? I just can't hear.
Everything fine.
Well,
no. Rike, I heard you.
Yeah, I think I'm here. Okay. Well, the Werner Best did participate in.
Okay, I can't hear you. That's why my earpods just went out. Okay, I can hear you now. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The audience could hear you, but I couldn't. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Well, he participated in the cult activities like parties where they were together and the child abuse happened. But he also trained some of my alters for murder. And it's very clear that he for some of his altars, I can tell about his everyday consciousness, but he was involved and he knew stuff. And I mean, to be an SS leader, I think you have to be not a good person, so say, you know.
Right, and I think you said you went to Wewelsburg Castle. That was where Himmler had his kind of the head of the order, the SS order, right?
Yeah.
And that Black Sun, or the Sonnenkrieg, or whatever, Schwarzsonnen, or something like that.
Yeah, the Black Sun. Yeah, they worked with that in the order, in cult orders too, and there were also trip to the extern stones. I don't know if it's called like that.
Yeah, it's actually known as like a lot of the kind of German paganism goes back there, and there were some National Socialist rituals there. Let me see if I can bring it up.
Yeah, and there's even a documentary from German TV from around the year 2000, in which a survivor, together with a journalist, goes to Wewelsburg and remembers the rituals that took place there. She had to kill and eat her baby, for example. So Wewelsburg is well known among the survivors as a place where such rituals take place. And Michael Aquino also had, I think in 1984, was at the Wewelsburg and hold a ritual there. It's officially known, the story of him. So
that's correct. There's a picture of him. I'm seeing if I can find it, but for people who aren't aware with him, he was the head of the Temple of Set here, and he was into kind of Nazi lore and memorabilia. Yeah. Which is a kind of a
U.S. military. Yeah.
And there was all these different kind of cult orders that were around. Like, I'm very familiar with the Ordo Templi Orientis, but there were other ones, some I wasn't aware of, and one are more European, but they all kind of overlapped, right? Maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah, they overlap because people were in various orders at the same time. It's like were Templi or Ordo Orientis and Fraternitas Saturni. Well, the OTO is like the short version that is connected to, for example, Aleister Crowley, who was also a known Satanist, and I think it's also kind of the Temple of Seth or Church of Seth that you said that you mentioned. I think that's also kind of connected, and maybe like sprang a spin-off from that. and they also had some Nazi group, like which I'm not sure, I don't know the name of that. And then some normal, well, normal is not normal, but it's a witch cult, and which they trace back to also ancient times. They also said everything comes from ancient times and ancestors long for thousands of years or something before. And in my school, they had well, there was something like New ISIS called this, and something was
You said Opus Dei too, but like the lower
Opus Dei.
members of Opus Dei didn't
Yeah.
know that the top were run by the literal Illuminatis, which makes sense and keys into kind of some of the stuff that happened in the French Revolution. But yeah, so the Illuminati's infiltrated other places. I think you also mentioned one of this people, Bjorn. He was a member of the Order of St. John. He might have been a Knight of Malta, which Himmler was a known Knight of Malta, by the way, the guy who started the SS. So maybe overlaps with, I mean, it would make perfect sense because usually a lot of the royalty, European royalty, among all of their other orders, is the Knights of Malta, somewhere around there. But it's just an incredible story. But they did, like, it's like you got trained by this group, by the cult, the capital C cult, to fulfill kind of work, like certain things. Like at a certain point, that you wanted to get out, right?
Yeah. That's, well, basically, I already knew that as a child, but I couldn't flee. And then later they just continued and they said, I have to, or I would die. And at some point I said, okay, well, then I want to die, then kill me, but they didn't. So I just managed to go away. And, well, yeah, remember stuff. And what was the question?
Well, I was just saying, like, you knew you wanted to get out. Like, you kind of like found people outside of your group that helped you kind of to get away. Like you're still kind of in conflict with them too. Like you filed a court case too. Is that correct?
I did,
That's
yeah.
kind of
No, that has been declined. That's over. They're not investigating anymore.
interesting.
But well, I do keep a low profile. Like I still have contact with my sister, and when I tried to tell her what's going on, I got a warning, so to say, from them, and got picked up again. And after that, I just try to be a little bit invisible because yeah, I still live here.
Right. I mean, you're probably like all the other survivors, keep a low profile and
Yeah.
stay. One of the things that I found interesting in your book is kind of I've been doing this research on this on these kind of occult groups and this thing, but this image that popped up in your book, let me see if I can bring it up. But it's like it's amazing. It's an Illuminati tesseract, and maybe that word isn't something that's familiar to you guys in Germany, but to hear this tesseract is very. This is the cube within the cube, and this is from page. I don't know what page it is of your book, but I found it interesting. That's like a full-on, super high-level occult kind of symbol where you're like in total control of somebody. But I don't. Maybe you'd use the tesseract, but I think the Star of David also has a tesseract included into it too. Like it gets pretty.
Yeah, that's at the middle actually. The other drawing that I did, that's the middle, just a bit bigger
It's
because
in your book. I have to.
it's yeah, it's
Yeah,
like
it's a
a
very
cube
interesting
and a
structure
diamond.
of in a world. And I think it was me that saw that's a tesseract, and then I discussed it with Rike and found it very interesting that a tesseract is used because it kind of gives a hint to the interdimensional aspect of all of this, because
Yes.
for the viewers, a tesseract is a cube in 4 dimensions.
Yes, that's a very good point. And it's also used, I've seen it referenced in conjunction with the use of aethers, like different dimensions, in scientific books, believe it or not. But I saw one from the 19th century. They talk about tesseracts and aethers, which also ties into John Dee and all this other. And it's used actually in Eyes Wide Shut, which kind of ties in to kind of your experience, this really dark secret society. And they said people have analyzed Eyes Wide Shut in the context of Fraternity Saturnus as a Saturnine cult. And some people have tied it I can't remember the guy's name, but directly as the ritual that takes place in the mansion, if you guys remember, is a Fraternity Saturnus ritual. Have you ever heard that? Are you familiar with Eyes Wide Shut?
The movie,
Yes.
I heard of it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I
Well,
don't
probably
like
wouldn't be.
movies
It
like
might
that.
be a trigger for you, but it's very well known, kind of in my
Yeah.
group, in my kind of environment. Eyes Wide Shut. I've done a lot of shows about that, and the Tesseract's in there, and there's a very disturbing ritual scene that people probably wouldn't believe is true, but I bet you would believe it's true. So
I bet the true ritual would be even more horrible.
Yeah, and it is said that there was another version of the movie than that became public at the end with deleted scenes. So yeah.
Yeah, that was the longest film shoot, so there's probably a lot of different scenes that are in there, and who knows. But Kubrick seemed to know a lot of this stuff. He knew the kind of secret society.
Didn't the guy who made it also die or something?
He died right after it was made, so he I think he died in 1999, right after it came out. So yeah, so pretty. It's I think it ties into your story, so maybe it's not. But this, for people who aren't seeing this visually, this is Michael Aquino at Wavelsberg on top of the Sonnen. Was it Schwarzsonnen? I think Sonnenschwarz. But the black
sun you see on the downlift.
Yeah, this is it. Yeah, black sun. But this is kind of like, imagine this is like the ritual thing with Himmler and all this. Pretty intense. There's other things that I wanted to ask you about. The other thing is, like, when you're involved in this cult, it's like the crime scenes are almost constant. Like you're going from a mayor's office to a high school where other people, it's almost like something from Rosemary's Baby, where they're taking you to other members of the cult that the public wouldn't see. It's almost like being behind a curtain or something, where the cult members recognize each other, but the public doesn't. Does that seem familiar?
Yeah, it's something that I thought about too. That's like behind a curtain. It's supposed to be invisible, but it was always called the reality behind the reality.
Right.
Yeah, if you imagine, maybe you can talk a little bit about this. This high school you went to was kind of completely controlled by the cult, and there took place mind control sessions with abuse and electricity and rituals in the night and so on. It's kind of unbelievable that this happens between us in a normal German city.
Right.
Yeah. That's the thing. They put it in between the normal life, just because otherwise they would have to have their own country and everybody would be aware. I don't think that would work then. It would work like this.
And you said you were taken to Bohemian Grove too. Do you have any memories of that?
I have some. That's why I put it in the book, but it's not very comprehensive. I see some. See this old statue and stuff, and then I have some informations from altars, but I couldn't tell the whole story in comprehensive format. So.
And you said that you said that the mind control is tied into common entertainment media like Alice in Wonderland. So you remember being shown that, and Lord of the Rings too. Like these are things where certain words or phrases would be triggering to you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's what they used as a child. I saw the Alice in Wonderland, but also like Lion King and Aladdin. You
Aladdin,
pronounce it like this.
Aladdin,
Um,
Aladdin. I think in this case.
Aladdin. Where they trained especially some prostitute artists to be called Jasmine and to reign over the others, to keep others in check in the inner world. And then later I was older, and then Lord of the Rings came out, and yeah, that was tied in it. Other authors were all trained to identify with the characters. It's also kind of the part together with the hypnosis that because children, if they know a character is like Jasmine, they know it and they love it from normal life, then they are glad to play it, to role play it. And then whatever the hypnotist says, this is what she does, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it," and I think that's great.
And this is a pattern well known to survivors and their therapists that the perpetrators use well known, for example, Disney movies for the programming of the children. So you hear this over and over again in the accounts of the survivors.
And also repetitive phrases like belittling phrases or things like that, and also depersonalizing other people too, like we're the elite and
Yep.
they're the mundanes. Like that's very cult language too. Like I've seen that. Order of Nine Angles does that all the time. Like, oh, we're special, we're the elite, they're not. Yeah, it's pretty. I mean, and also one of the other things that ties in with cults here is like this whole games, like it's a game, we're playing a game. Does that sound familiar, Rike? Like they'd say it's a game. I saw that you mentioned that
Yeah,
in
of
your.
course, that's how they talk to the children because children always play games. That's how they think. They work with that thinking, right brain or magical thinking. They It's not like they are forcing the children to stuff, but like in their own way, they're working with how the child mind works. And if a child says, "I don't want to do this," and then say, "Well, it's only a game. It will be over soon." But for the author, of course, it won't be over in the inner world. For example, I had a memory of how a cat author was trained. And then they said, just do it, just a minute. You will be rewarded after. But the author then kept being a cat in the inner world for many years.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Wow. So the games there too. That's very prominent in this group here that had very similar things like you. It's called the Finders, but they were transporting children all over the country, close to the CIA. Kids were abused, it seemed like. A lot of communication through technology, and then a cover up. Like there was just a massive, like there was like enough evidence to probably take it to court, but then all of a sudden it just disappeared. And I mean, who knows what was going on? You see another theme is blackmail. So this is also you're blackmailing each other and other people, right? I mean, this cult was doing that. Can you expound on that or talk about that?
Right. Yeah, that's have a great example for this is my mother. She wasn't raised and born in a cult. She was an outsider, and when she was kept, she was not kept. Well, like they allowed my father to stay with her, but they had to control her because at one time she found out and was saying that's not good, and maybe she wants to go away. She wanted to go away, and then what they did, and I think they have it done before she was aware of all this, is that my grandmother just put some drug in her drink. So she was unconscious, and my grandmother put my mother, dragged her to the bedroom and took off her clothes, and then told me, or rather an alter of me, to go to my mother and make it look like she was abusing me. And then my grandmother took the pictures. And later on, when my mother found out, she said, "Look, this is a picture of you. If you don't stay and cooperate, I will go to the police."
Wow, right.
Yeah.
It's just an incredible, this whole mechanism of the occult and things like that, and how similar it is to just other stories, corroboration, just like Marcel has repeated. Like, there is a lot of corroborating stuff to the kind of normal person would be extraordinary, but these people independently have come up with same kind of stories. It's really
Yeah,
really
even with respect to certain details or locations that are not or have not been before publicly known. So, for example, survivors have named the castle in Heidelberg as a location where rituals take place, and they have done this independently of each other. So these details given in the survivors' testimonies are a very, very strong corroboration of their experiences.
And then the education. So you got a regular education through the German system, but also the occult educations there. All the knights, Beltane, Walpurgisnacht, the demons, the shamanism, and all that. Really, you were exposed to, isn't that right, Rike?
Yeah. Yeah, they had to train. They also called it training for certain purposes. I think they put their children to all stuff. I like magic, training, and the military, everything. That just that's what they need authors too, for too, because altogether would be too much for one mind, I think.
What was the hypnosis with Omega? What did you mean by that? Like, there was like you said there was some other Omega thing. I didn't know what that meant, or did that
That's
refer?
Yeah, that's a focus word, like a trigger word. While all the Greek alphabets would be have a different meaning, like alpha, beta, gamma, and omega. It was something that I did find in a memory, when the handler Björn was he started a hypnosis. He said this word, and I got immediately into a trance. That's
So
this.
just
Yeah.
wow. So
And
that's it.
many survivors have and their therapists have found out that these Greek letters were used for programming, or certain altars for certain tasks were referencing to a certain Greek letter. For example, theta is connected to psychic abilities, for example, or using psychic abilities to harm or kill a human being.
And that's it. There's also astral events. Like, this is like, it's all you've experienced, all that stuff, like astral grays, like, so what we call grays, or Crowley would call lamb. Like, these things appeared. They appeared for Crowley in 1918 in the United States. So it makes you think, like, what's really going on with this UFO story, which is all over the news here in the States. I don't know if it makes it all the way to Europe, but Like they just put out another thing, like the Age of Disclosure, and all these people who are around them are occultists. They're probably members of the global cult, CULT. It wouldn't surprise me at all. So it's really something else.
Me neither. Yeah.
So you in your memories, you've seen these kind of gray aliens. Is that correct, Rike?
Yes, I've seen it on one occasion that I describe. I think I still not always believe myself. I mean, it did seem like they were wearing suits or something, but then again, they were smaller beings, so I don't know what was all about. And well, the lizards were there, so I'm not gonna doubt too much that grays exist.
Right, and that's Whitley
Just
Strieber. Whitley Strieber's written about that, and you've written about that as well, right, Marcel?
Yes, I very much researched the so-called abduction research from the mainly 80s and 90s. And you have hundreds of accounts from people claiming to have been in contact with these gray entities. But what's very interesting in this respect is that there is a survivor from the UK, Janet Archer, who also describes not only these lizard or reptilian beings, but also having seen the gray entities in the context of her mind control and satanic abuse experiences. So it corroborates Rike's story.
Oh, it's incredible. It's really an incredible story. I'm glad you wrote it. A lot of this stuff is corroborated, like we said. Maybe we're almost at the hour mark. Maybe you could each kind of summarize or anything you'd like to say before we wrap it up. One of you guys would like to start?
yeah. I'm glad that you and other people read my book, and I'm also glad that I made the decision to put in this astral and lizard stuff, because I wasn't so sure about it. It was like the next level of not believing. Another factor where people can say this makes me unbelievable. But I think it's time that stuff like that also comes out.
Yeah, it's incredible. So
Yeah.
thanks for sharing. Marcel, is there anything you'd like to add?
Thanks.
Anything I missed before we wrap up?
I can just support what Rike just said. And we discussed this lizard or reptilian aspect in her book. And I also supported her idea that she talks about it, because I think it's the next level. And I understand that there's a lot of viewers or listeners here that might believe in the satanic cult aspect, but think it's not possible that such entities exist. However, as you mentioned in the US, the UAP topic is very familiar now. I think soon there will be another documentary as well, where the Marco Rubio, the defense minister, is also giving an account and claims having been informed of UAP retrieval programs and so on. And the leading researchers and insiders say that, according to their opinion, the UAP topic has an interdimensional explanation. So if Rike now talks about interdimensional entities like the lizards and grays, it goes hand in hand with these disclosure that we have at the moment regarding the UAP topic. And so it's very important to deliver a complete, or at least broader picture of this whole phenomenon.
I think you're right. This is a kind of disclosure in itself. It may not be the UFO disclosure, but it's kind of, and it's amongst other disclosures, like we mentioned, Chantal Fry and Annika Lucas, maybe not as graphic as this one, but really is something else. So people check out this book. It is available in English and in German or Deutsch. It's available now on Amazon. I think you can get a hardbound copy or Kindle. I got the Kindle version. and it's well worth a read. It's really something else. And like, I've studied this for over a decade now, so I know a lot of this stuff is really accurate. But thank you so much for your time. And where's the best place if people want to reach out to you, Marcel or Rike? Where's the best place for people to do that? Because I'll put it in the show notes.
I shut down my internet page because it was too much communication going on, and I wanted to focus on the relation to survivors I already have and doing some research. So at the moment, it's not that easy to contact me.
Do you have social media or anything like that? Maybe not.
I'm on Facebook, for example.
Facebook. Okay, that's a good one. And that's probably the best way to reach out to Rike too, is if anything like that is that's the best place. And people check out Dark New World Order Part 1 and 2 on my show. I'll try to repost those in conjunction with this. But again, the guest and the author is Rike Schwan, and the book that she published in November 2024 is Illuminati in Germany, the descendant of an SS leader spills the beans. And we are also joined by the man who wrote the foreword, Dr.Marcel Polte. So thank you very much for both your times. Thank you.
Thank you very much
for having us.
Giving us a platform.
Okay. Stay there, Zach. Stay there.